My name is Alex Butler. I'm the product marketing manager for Med Device with MasterControl. Previously, I was the product manager for bill of materials. What else? I should know that, shouldn't I? Projects, our PDM connector, with a lot of input on like supplier and EVR planning as well. So I've been involved with that over the last couple of years. It's going to become very apparent to you very quickly that I'm not an engineer. I do have a background in engineering, but I've invited a few people here specifically to give a little bit of their feedback. So kind of key takeaways today. I want to give you an overview of MasterControl modules that may impact engineering. I think all of our modules, what we do, clearly impacts engineering, but some of them more so than others. We want to talk about pulling engineering documents into MasterControl, making sure that we're working with the right revs. Also, just talk about product flow from idea through manufacturing. Be a little bit of an introduction to some concepts we're working on currently that we would love feedback on. And then open forum for sharing best practices. And then your involvement. I hope to stress with this how much you can impact our development, what the product looks like, what it does, how it interacts with any of your groups in your companies. Is it? Might be. With this guy. So my goals, I just like to explore product features you might not be aware of. I was talking to a customer earlier, the difference between last summit and this summit, just the amount of small but meaningful enhancements we've put in that could impact engineering and impact manufacturing. We've come quite a long way since then. So I'd like to share some of those. And then kind of pull some best practices, share some lessons I've learned, talking to both customers and consultants. Do a little bit of collaboration, so this could go as long as we want. We could be the first in line for lunch. Either options are pretty good. And then based on our keynote speaker yesterday, I think we should have a little bit of fun, if possible. So taking cues from Rob Thomas, our director of UX, good to tell a story. So this is, there's a slot canyon down by St. George, and there's about a 100-foot section of narrows, and about 5 feet of that section, you have to be on your side, breathing, exhaling your breath, and then pushing yourself forward with your toes. And I didn't know I was claustrophobic before that point. I thought I was doing okay. And this is me actually coming out of that, and somebody captured the moment. And so I'm going to liken that to my experience outside of MasterControl when I was working with the engineering group, trying to bring them into compliance, into our QMS. We used Agile. We tried to implement PDM connectors. We had all these fun policies of when you do a drawing, who reviews what, how does it get into, we were using Agile at the time. How that would interact with our bill of materials. Again, we were using one of the things I wanted to discuss here is some of the other softwares we need to interact with. We had Agile, who was owned by Oracle, but our bill of materials weren't syncing up. We weren't talking to each other. So I would create a bill of material, it would get released, it would get approval. Engineering had a bill of material that got released and approval. And then somebody was manually entering all this into Oracle so they could go out to our ERP system and we could schedule work. So it was never seamless. It was always manual, let's put it that way. And then how we would get those jobs kicked out, get a batch record, and then get those batch records into a spot where we could then reference those and know that we had the information available. So then I come to MasterControl, and when it comes to engineering, this is my role. I'm on sales call. This comes up all the time. In fact, any prospect, they're going to want to talk about how they could bring their engineering group in here. I'd love to hear feedback on why you think that is. I'm going to propose a few reasons, a few of my theories to that. But I spent a lot of time on sales calls. They want to talk about CAD software, getting drawings into MasterControl, bill of materials, all this fun stuff that I also got to struggle with for 3 years when I was in that other role with my last company. So I just like to see, what would you think the number one question from quality is? Generally, we're talking to quality when they're purchasing MasterControl. What is their number one question? What is the one thing that you think would take most of my time when it comes to engineering? I know there's some employees here that have an idea about that.
Controlling the drawings?
It's the PDM connector, and absolutely. And we do have a PDM connector, and I have seen it work. But I mean, I'll take my MasterControl hat off. I've seen the issues with it. I've seen the issues when we tried to implement a connection using Agile at my last company. Get into that a little bit later here. But that is the number one thing they're talking about. So for those that don't know what PDM is, it's basically product data management. It's a QMS in a way for the engineering group. They want to get their documents into a single location. It's the CAD, but it's also documents. It's also bill of materials. It's a whole lot of information about the product they're working on. So why quality is asking for a PDM connector, and they just want to make sure they've got the most up-to-date revision of a drawing in MasterControl. I don't think they see PDM connector holistically. They're trying to sync up two different sets of software. And again, open forum if anybody has any. If anything, yeah, that's Sanjay.
When you were talking about the PDM connector, does it include the UDI components of the product information?
That's a great question. I'm going to say no at this point. It does not. We haven't gotten to that point yet. Aisha, could you expand on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So UDI, we're trying to wrap our heads around UDI and what is MasterControl's role for the customers. It's a great topic. I think I've had a few conversations just kind of between sessions on UDI and what we're doing, what customers are doing, and it's all out in the wild right now. So we'd love your feedback on that.
Yeah, but then at the same time, you know it. I mean, FDA has that scheduled deadlines to be compliant from the UDI perspective.
Yeah.
So are you aligned with that timeline if you are trying to kind of include those components, whether it is PDM connector or bill of material or product data in
No, you have options to put it in for bill of materials and stuff like that. But in terms of pulling that data from your CAD, yeah, no, we don't have that yet. There are some solutions out there. If anybody was interested in that specifically, we could set up some demos with some of the solutions consultants. But we are addressing it on kind of the manufacturing side with EBR, what information is collected, where it's stored, how that's those relationships. So if you haven't been to one of the EBR sessions yet, I'd highly recommend it from that standpoint. Thank you. That's a great question. UDI, it's on all of our minds, right?
It's everybody. I think that's one of the biggest kind of initiatives in our organization to have all the systems compliant.
Yeah.
I'm sure how I can have that in MasterControl.
And we'd love your input. We'd love to get your feedback on that.
We'll talk a little bit more detail about that.
Great, perfect. So what I've been doing, I've actually reached out to SolidWorks. I'm kind of looking for their best practices, how they would manage the PDM connector specifically. There's some complexity with this that I'm getting into. Again, I've kind of made the statement that quality just wants to make sure that we've got a single source of truth on our documents. They're not necessarily approving 3D drawings, and they're not looking at each individual layer. They just want to make sure that from a compliance standpoint, they've got the most up-to-date version of the document. They're not looking for this. In fact, 80% of what is listed up here on kind of the PLM, and you've got your PDM there, they've just purchased or are talking about purchasing MasterControl to manage that. There's a few other variations of that I'll get into here in just a second. The complexity that we've run into is SolidWorks or another AutoCAD software. MasterControl has a third-party publishing, AdLib. They do wonderful things for us. And the documents come into MasterControl, and when there's a revision, we've got this kind of cycle going that SolidWorks updates, and we break your system. The PDM connection is broken, and I apologize. I dealt with the same thing in Agile. AdLib, we're then waiting on them to get up to the latest version. So what we found is the customers who've gotten our PDM connector up and running, we're causing some harm. They're reverting to manual processes, and to my knowledge, I've yet to talk to a customer, they generally stick with those manual processes going forward, just to avoid the unknown of where's AdLib with these changes, where's SolidWorks, are we upgrading SolidWorks, are we upgrading MasterControl? So it's a very complicated system.
Our engineering just doesn't, does this
SolidWorks has an update, they go for this, go.
They
They don't tell anybody, they just go.
Oh yeah, and that's
So,
classic.
That's why we never.
Mine too.
That's why we never.
Just so
drawings
quick
in.
raise of hand. Who are the engineers in the room? We've got one, and then the quality people. Talk to this guy. I had the same issues.
That's the only
He
reason why
left his hand
we.
raised for both things.
Oh, that's true.
I wear a lot of
He's
hats.
got it all.
Brad is he's
You're not-
he's
no,
full
you
of pain
figured
from
it
both
out.
sides there. I mean, I was again, I'm not an engineer. I was in product development, but I had access to engineering, and I was one of the product development managers that did have access to engineering. So I became a babysitter. And I love engineering. It's the most fun group you'll find in your building. But I was the one who was manually getting these documents from them and putting them into Agile and making sure the approvals went through. And that was my mornings. Yes.
Does anybody else manage things like cadence files and like the raw printed circuit board files, as opposed to necessarily mechanical assemblies?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Is there anybody in the room? You want to repeat that?
Well, we use cadence for our raw fab. The majority of our cards are printed circuit boards.
Okay.
So we produce, the actual Gerber files and raw fab assembly drawings, as well as turnkey assembled PCBAs. So, but they're all managed in different files, and they have different part numbers.
Yeah.
With different revisions.
Yeah, and I'm trying to make the analogy between like all my components and sub-assemblies and finished goods and kitting configurations and stuff like that. I think would be pretty analogous to that. And it was each one in MasterControl terms. If I was using MasterControl, not Agile, to put it into that terminology, I would be putting each one of those onto an info card and manually pushing them through and making sure that they're in compliance. So.
But there are PDM systems that manage cadence as well.
There are.
But
so,
we manage everything manually, so it's not as big of a deal because we put them again in individual info cards.
There are PLM systems that kind of will manage all of this, and it's very engineering, manufacturing. Most of it came out of electronic circuitry. I think Siemens pioneered a lot of this stuff. Very high dollar, very complex. So I'd love to get some feedback from that area of the industry as well. We've also got a consultation ongoing right now with the AutoCAD professor at UVU. So we've been working with him. I've asked him to look at competitors. I've asked him to kind of, hey, a day in the life as an engineer before you came into academia, what would you use? What would you do? And our first meeting with him, there were a few of us here that were in the room. He was like, this is a pain, man. So we're working hard with him on some solutions with that. But really, out of the gate, his recommendation, looking at not just MasterControl, not just SolidWorks, but what he could get his hands on, he's working on a report for me, is if you've got the PDM, EPDM, I believe it's SolidWorks Pro today if you're in SolidWorks. If you've got the ability to run life cycles and revisioning and collaborate within that software, he's saying do it. Update your quality policy to say this is where the engineering approvals reside. And then if quality needs to pull that document into MasterControl, let them publish a PDF. Recommendation I've been giving to customers is that you've always got the PDF file with your native file. The revisions match up in case something needs to go out to a supplier. And then the engineers need to open and work on that file from MasterControl. So again, it's a manual process. The PDM system, as far as what the engineers need to see and review and approve, collaborate on, it's going to manage it a lot better than MasterControl on that end. But then you need some other people to wait. I had to approve some drawings, regulatory people and quality people as well. So, and then he was saying if you've got just CAD without kind of the built-in PDM functionality, treat it like a Word document. I mean, I don't want to oversimplify it. I'd love to give you something a lot more interesting and exciting and automated, but I've probably broken a lot of people's systems with our PDM connector. But yeah, basically, this is where the file lives. We can store the native file. We can store the PDF, keep those revisions in sync, and when they work on it, they're going to pull that back into draft just like a document. And it's kind of a training thing on the engineers. this is the single point of truth. This is why we have MasterControl. This is why we have a QMS. Any thoughts on that? Yes?
Yeah, no, I think quickly I wanted to add to that kind of end-to-end cycle. If you look at it from the engineering perspective, all those documents in the CAD, design is done, then it comes into the master control. That is how we are using. And then we store there from the compliance perspective. But then on the top of it, what we did is we built an API to publish some of those engineering documents which needs to go along with our product specifications
Yes.
to our customers. So we have a front-end tool for customers to look at our product during the sale, etc. What they do is, whenever that product specifications or engineering drawing needs to be shared with the customer, they quickly click on the link within that application, which goes into the master control, puts the published version of that engineering document.
And that, like, an API and custom code, and great solution. That is a great solution. I've talked to a few customers that did that. When we were running a system similar to this, our biggest risk was a file going out to a supplier or a testing facility, and we gave them the wrong revision. My biggest fear was I'd go talk to engineering, and I'd say, we had the University of Utah doing some kind of prototype testing and stuff for us, and I'd say, yeah, they've got revision 2, and engineering would say, oh, well, yeah, we're on revision 4. And that was, I mean, that's, with any of these systems, I mean, if we're working in Word, Excel, or anything like that, MasterControl doesn't completely alleviate those pains. But that was my number one concern, is that they weren't using Agile as the single point of truth on their documents. So you kind of, this was a point I was going to say, push back on that. Is there better practices? Is anybody in the room doing anything different? Have you successfully implemented a PDM connector, specifically our PDM connector? And I would also say, reach out to your engineers. Get them in contact with me. I'd love to talk with them. I had that slide where I say I spend a lot of time on sales calls. My number one request is get the engineers in the room. Get them on the WebEx, get them on the phone, let's talk to them, and we kind of work through these things, and they'll say, yeah, we'd rather be managed by an SOP than worry about this connection piece. So they generally accept that, and they're kind of happy working that way. I mean, would you, based on kind of what's presented here today, would you want more of an automation from an engineer with your engineering hat on?
Honestly, the best way to handle it for me would be for master control the NLPL, where I store my solid file. So I save it to my computer, I upload it, and when I download it, I may be on revision 100 because that's making different things.
Sure.
But if I store it within master control, then version control automated, it's fine. But my other engineers downloads it, works on it, uploads it, then at least all of it is going to be auditable.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't do that until we make significant changes because it's so cumbersome.
You're letting your engineers kind of have their sandbox still, so to speak.
It's with that, right. I don't want to slow them down.
Yeah.
I don't want them to, like, if I make a couple of circles in a drawing, it doesn't really matter that it's actually important, or actually, by important, I mean until it's actually a change that will be implemented later.
Yeah.
But if I could store all of my files in master control and have it be a simple process.
Yeah. I mean, from the FDA standpoint, if you've got revision 2 in master control and your manufacturers or in-house, they're building version 2, you're in compliance. They're not going to care that if your guys have been working on the file and they're making slight changes and stuff like that until they want to implement it into their release document.
Right, but if it was all just stored in there anyway, it would be one less thing to worry about, and it would make sure that there aren't any mistakes.
And we stress that when they've got their documents saved on their desktop. Same with me working on an SOP or any other quality document, work instructions. It's on my desktop. I can make changes. I can play around with things like that. But the second we're going to revise it, master control is where you go. So, yes.
Well, and also, we do it because a lot of our hardware designs also include firmware.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at it from a change request, I want all of the release information, not only my hardware change, but I want my software change contained in the same release.
Yeah.
So that from an auditing perspective, I can go back and audit that complete engineering change order, and I know what revision our firmware went to and where we are with the hardware changes were.
That's a great point too, is if I'm working on a design and somebody else is working on the software, I can link those if it's all within master control, which would make an engineer's life so much easier because then you don't have to go searching for different files, you can set that up. And they're going to auto-populate, they're going to automatically update them. So they'll get life a lot easier.
That's great. Thank you. We have, so part of this consultation, I am working on a white paper. I'd love any involvement on that. Again, I'm not the engineer in the room. But then we've kind of got a little bit of a mini hackathon going on as well, and I've actually invited one of our QA testers, Ben Rosequist, to kind of talk about this concept of a hot folder, if that icon didn't make any sense.
Okay, so Alex asked me to do this about 15 minutes ago.
He's been working on the hot folder
So I've been
concept
working
longer
on
than
this
that.
for a long time, but I'm going to use the whiteboard because I didn't prepare a slide in those 15 minutes.
I prepared a slide.
Oh,
You're good.
that's true. Well, let's draw on the folder. So in QA, I'm kind of on the customer side, right? I want to make your guys' job easier. But at the same time, when we sell master control, we sell it to quality people, and they're just looking for the checkbox that says, you know, PDM connector, and they go check. We got it. All right, move on, right? They're not the ones who are the engineers working on all this stuff. So put yourself in the engineer's position, right? You've gone to school, you've got the experience, you're working your butt off making this cool design, and you have somebody else like, slow down, you need this version here, and move that version here, and put this over here, and you're just contained. You're kind of in that canyon that Alex was claustrophobicized in, right? So we don't want that. We want to make everybody's job easier. We want to make it a win-win, right? So what we are theorizing on, because Master Control already has a capability of what we call a hot folder. Does anybody use that feature? It's not a well-known, you know.
Like the PDM connector.
Yeah, it's another one of those. No, we actually use it in production. So I work on the supplier risk team, and I actually am one of the guys that runs the ATOQs for supplier and risk. And when we're done, that huge document that none of you really want to look at, but really, really need, we just throw it in what we call a hot folder. And what happens is, we'll go up here. This marker is awesome. Let's try another marker. Master Control has its eye on some network shared folder, right? And it's just watching it. And it's empty. But as soon as I have my document that I'm done, right, my ATOQ document, I place it in the folder. There it is, right? And let's assume I'm the engineer, right? So I have my finished product or my raw file, maybe with a PDF export of that design, and I place it in the hot folder. We can set up Master Control to just monitor it. When it sees a new file in there, it just sucks it up into Master Control. Right? It now has it, and there's pre-programmed routes that it can automatically be launched on. It can automatically create an info card, attach main files, attachments, all that stuff automatically. So now we don't have to have this huge encompassing PDM connector, right? We just use existing technology that we have. We allow the engineers their playground, right? They can do all their stuff, design all their stuff. All that we ask them to do is, like, when you're done, when you hit save, just save a copy to this network share. It's right here on your desktop, right? Your IT guys can do that. So in a nutshell, that's it. That's the new concept that we're running with.
So on, oh, sorry, other
I was
question.
gonna say, so at that point, that it goes sucked up into MasterControl, then it's not an automatic, it doesn't automatically go into a particular route. You have to choose, someone has to go in and go, I want this to go in.
So it can be an automatic route, yes. You could make multiple hot folders. Each hot folder would have its own pre-configured automation.
Yeah, everybody.
Whoa!
It's auto load. It's auto load.
Is it auto? Okay, you guys call it auto load?
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Then it is a feature that you know and use.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was called auto load. We called it hot folder.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Sounds better.
Working on that.
That's what I'm saying. This is, like I said, this technology we already use. Apparently 3 or 4 people automatically use it. We were just thinking on our team, why do we have this PDM connector to complicate all the, have to publish it through AdLib, cycle through, it's already here. Let's just branch out and use it a little more.
So once it's on my desktop and I'm working on a document I'm saving every 3 minutes, then every 3 minutes MC is going to put it into a new version.
So there's a difference between saving and moving, I guess. So the hot folder is always empty. Once MasterControl sees a new file in there, it will suck in the file and then delete this.
So
it
it's not
remains empty.
it's not the static
It's
save
not
place.
it's not a static save point. So it's like when your engineer is done for the day or for the revision or whatever he's working on, and he's like, okay, we're ready to push it to our change control process or whatever it is, he can do a save as or just copy and paste his, the files that he's been trained that MasterControl needs, moves them from wherever he's working on them into this hot folder, or you guys called it auto load folder. And MasterControl will remove it from that auto load folder, and all the stuff is pre-programmed onto that folder already. So if it's there, it goes up. It's automatically launched on a route to so-and-so who has to sign off on it. An email is created and shot out to all the people who have to be aware, and it just auto does stuff.
Yeah. Will it populate a new info card?
Yes.
It can.
Can it do
No.
So every
That was going to be my question is revision. So your engineers would keep the revision on, it's on 01. They're going to save it into MasterControl as 01, and it's going to recognize that, but then trigger.
Yeah, so linking, and this is probably some of the feedback that we need to kind of solidify this idea. Again, we just came up with this idea not that long ago, right? To use auto load for the PDF. So what I'm seeing is, okay, I put version 2 in, but now I've created a separate info card, and now I have version 1 and version 2 in MasterControl, and they're not linked. That is something we would probably have to overcome.
So this is all set up on info card type. So you do an info card type template, you pick the route, you pick the task, you do all that stuff in the info card. There's a little tiny button on the bottom that says auto load. You click on that, and if you have access to my files and all that other stuff, it creates a folder for QASOB. Creates a folder, you drag that onto your desktop, and every single document that you drag in there will get sucked into MasterControl, new info card created, populated, and launched on a route. And it's based on the task cycle time. So if you put one in there and go, oh crap, you have 15 minutes or whatever your cycle time is to get it out of there and get the right one in.
Yeah.
So
And that's the exact language we're going to use in the brochure. Is
it's oh crap.
suck stuff into MasterControl, 15-minute oh crap time.
Yep.
Perfect.
Biggest thing, make it available for hosted customers.
That is going to be a huge hurdle to overcome.
Yes,
but yes,
because
we want to.
Going forward, I have thousands, but I'm hosted now, and my file, nothing of this works.
And do you like the hosted stuff?
Yes. There's a
I like that. That's the
caveats,
answer. Yes.
But yes.
Good.
You said it's a PDF file.
It can be any
It
file.
could be the native
It could
It
file.
can be the
So
native file.
ideally-
It can be PDF. It can be a zip of the two.
So ideally, if it's a new file, you do it that way, but then beyond that, it's a checkout process.
Yeah.
Just like a document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do it for new files only.
Unless they want to make an enhancement, we
Yeah,
What?
because you
That's
should-
why we're here. That's why we're here, right?
To look at.
Like I
hey,
said,
I've
this
got
was just
this
our idea,
document.
and we're like, wow, we really, PDM is sucking the life out of us. Let's make it easy. Hey, we have this auto load folder feature. Why not?
So what if I have an assembly of SolidWorks file and I have 50 different components in that assembly? So I put everything in a folder. Can I upload that folder with the 51 different documents into this file and then?
I don't know the answer to that. I haven't played with it enough. I would probably think you'd zip it up into one file, just zip everything, and then take that. But I'm sure we could work on something that would.
I think these are scenarios we'd love to flesh out, and
Yeah.
we want to bench test all of this.
I
So
think this is why Alex asked me 15 minutes ago to present this. So he
That's
can get
'cause I
all these
wasn't prepared.
ideas.
It's been 30 now.
It's been 30 now, yeah.
So is somebody capturing those
Code files.
suggestions?
So say for instance, it's not a drawing,
Somebody
it's not a
capturing those
document,
suggestions?
it's not a document that you publish,
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
As long as it's a
It's
file,
software code file.
right?
that I-
Because MasterControl can suck in any type of file.
Okay.
Right? We don't have to publish the file. It's just there's a file. It's the main file or it's an attachment on the info card. Doesn't matter.
Have you ever done mass loading? This is the best way to do it. Because I absolutely don't like doing like snow wakes and I get all these errors. And this is the best way I found to do it. I just drop it in and it's.
So you can take the whole shared file directory and just dump it in there.
Correct. Yeah,
Mhm.
we'll printer, we'll have every single document.
So by raise of hands, who likes this idea for PDM?
Only if.
One. Well, we're not doing it.
And hosted.
and hosted.
And hosted. Okay. Well, I think we have 1 or 2 minutes left. I'm gonna.
Are you serious?
I think
Maybe
so.
10 minutes.
8 minutes.
8 minutes.
Oh, 8
Okay,
minutes.
8 minutes.
Okay. Any other questions?
So
Yes.
the title of the document becomes the title of the info card?
Title of the file, yeah, title of the
Actual
actual
file
file name.
that's getting sucked in
Yeah.
becomes the name of the info card.
So it doesn't include the doc X?
Nope. It drops that.
Okay.
I think it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just make sure you don't have any pound signs or hash marks in the file name.
Any illegal Windows characters on a file name
What happens if it does?
It
It
will-
says
Put it
it-
back up?
It
No,
just says,
just hang.
you gotta fix it.
It'll screw up publishing, one thing.
Yeah.
So then that's a different folder for each info card type,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So, right? In our instance, we're talking about PDM engineering, so I would assume, well, I don't know. I'm not a CAD engineer. I don't know how many design types they would be working on, but your IT guy could set them up a folder, right? That is that auto load folder for each type. If he's only working on one, that's all he's got to worry about. I mean, they're engineers, they can figure out folder structures.
Some of them.
You'd think.
Yeah.
Could that be, that folder could be in another folder inside the computer's hard drive, it's in the desktop?
Yeah, it can be located anywhere.
Okay.
It's, I mean, technically, what I would think is it's just a network share. So the folder itself is actually on the server somewhere, and whatever's on your desktop is actually just a shortcut.
This works for Spark, which is my house.
No, not yet. That's why we wanted to get everybody's ideas. Is this something we would want to go forward with? Because it would be a huge hurdle to overcome for hosting customers.
From a development standpoint, the biggest Spark initiative right now is parity, so that you wouldn't really know the difference between hosted on-premise. So that's in active development right now. In fact, Lane Herning is the product manager on that. So that is something we are actively working on.
Yeah, because that would, doing it this way, if you guys can incorporate the revision process of it, somehow a new drawing gets put in that folder. The
Link them
system
together.
Yeah, the system recognizes, hey, this is a revision. I'm going to start the revision process with collaboration and.
I'd be willing to bet that Aisha could do that in 2 days.
Okay.
Right,
No.
Aisha?
Another hackathon. Another
Hackathon.
Yeah, with the raise.
Yeah.
Definitely do that.
With her face, yeah.
Hey.
I mean, this is similar to Dropbox and Google Drive, right?
It is
So-
similar.
Concept's the same.
Hmm?
Concept's the same.
Concept is nearly nearly identical.
It's nearly identical minus the part that I did.
And I mean, I would still say my recommendation walking out of this session is exactly what we talked about. It's still just treating it, saving the native file. If you're gonna make a revision, you're gonna check it out. You're going to update it from there, just as if it was a Word or Excel document. This is where we're going. This is what we'd like. We would like a best practice that we can deliver to our customers that may save them a few steps. And this is kind of where we're leaning right now.
We want to make your guys' life easier, but we want to allow the engineer to do his job, right? And not have to be boxed in by process and procedure. Yeah.
You're the same guy. You're the engineering quality.
Yes. How's it sound? Sounds great.
It sounds good. Brad agrees. Moving on.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. He's also a professor at U of EU, so he's a lot more natural with that than I am. I think we're done. So it's noon. I presented a whole lot more. I would have brought you to tears. Life-changing stuff. But I do want to sum up my next 47 slides. Could this row stand up? Ben, stand up. I just want you to meet the team. I just really quickly want to get you involved in our development process. We've got Eric, Aisha, Jeremiah Johnson, yes, the Jeremiah Johnson, and Ben Rosequist. And this is just a subset of our team, but MasterControl has invested more in this last year in being able to get enhancements in from the customer. So as a product manager, I'm only as good as my network of customers. Brad knows this. We've enhanced the product quite a bit. We just met with a customer about bill of materials a few weeks ago, and we're going to be able to demo a fix for them in a few more weeks. So our cycle times on when we can get enhancements out the door, how we can improve your product. If you're looking to upgrade, you should be talking with me and the other product managers and saying, this doesn't feel right. There's going to be scenarios where we can literally show you a demo, quality tested, it's going into code in the next few weeks. So that was kind of the remainder of my presentation. And so unless there's any other questions, I guess I'll let you go to lunch. Let's see. I hope it's as good as yesterday. Oh, thank you. That was a great conversation. So.